The red swing creaked, a mournful metronome counting the seconds of a life that was no more. 6 months, 184 days since the world had ended. Alex stood in the biting October rain, his coat soaked through, but he felt nothing. The cold was a distant cousin to the ice that had permanently settled in his chest. This was his ritual, his penance. He'd stand before the empty swing in the deserted playground and watch it sway in the wind, imagining the phantom weight of his 7-year-old daughter, Lily.
He could still hear her laughter, a sound like wind chimes that the wind now cruelly mimicked as it whistled through the hollow metal frame. He could see the flash of her sunshine yellow raincoat, a defiant splash of color against the perpetual gray of their lives. That was the last thing he remembered seeing. A tiny, brilliant sun vanishing into the shadowed moor of the woods bordering the park. They found the coat 2 days later, snagged on a thorn bush, but of Lily there was nothing. Not a cry, not a footprint, not a trace.
The police had called it a kidnapping gone wrong, a cold case. Detective Miller, a man whose exhaustion seemed woven into the fabric of his cheap suit, had offered his condolences with the practiced apathy of someone who had seen too much.
"We have no leads, Mr. Thorne. These things, sometimes people just disappear."
Alex's hands clenched into fists. Lily hadn't just disappeared. She was stolen, erased, and in the vacuum of her absence, a vow had taken root in the barren soil of his heart. If the world had no justice for his daughter, he would carve it out himself.
The dining room table was gone. In its place stood a battlefield of grief. Maps of the city and surrounding woods were pinned to corkboards, red string connecting locations like severed arteries. Crime scene photos, pilfered from a source his former life as an investigative journalist had provided, were scattered amongst handwritten notes. Alex moved through the clutter, a ghost haunting the ruins of his own life. Sleep was a luxury he'd forsaken weeks ago. He was fueled by black coffee and a singular, burning purpose.
His wife, Sarah, would drift into the room occasionally, her presence as thin and fragile as a whisper.
"Alex, please, you're killing yourself. Let her go." "Let her go? She is our daughter, Sarah. How can you even say that?" "Because this obsession, it won't bring her back," she'd reply, before retreating into the silent sanctuary of her grief, leaving him alone with his righteous fury. He saw her fragility as a betrayal. He was fighting for their daughter while she was surrendering. The chasm between them grew with every passing day. His investigation was a slow, agonizing crawl through the shadows of his town. He re-interviewed neighbors the police had dismissed, his questions sharp and precise, honed by years of digging for truths people wanted to keep buried. He spent days in the woods, combing the leaf-strewn ground until his knees were raw and his hope was worn to a thread. It was on one of these excursions that he found it, half buried under a rotting log missed by the official search parties. A small, water-warped sketchbook. Inside, the drawings were crude, childish.
stick figures under a lopsided sun. But on the last page was something different. A single, intricately drawn bird. A raven. Its feathers rendered in meticulous, obsessive detail. Its eye a single, malevolent dot of black ink. It was drawn with an adult's hand, a stark contrast to the childish scrawls before it. It felt wrong, profane. He didn't know why, but a cold dread, colder than any rain, seeped into his bones. He knew that bird.
He tore the house apart, a man possessed. He didn't know what he was looking for, only that the image of the raven had unlocked a door in his mind, a door he was terrified to open. He found it in Sarah's old portfolio case, tucked away in the attic under a dust sheet, a collection of her art school sketches from years ago, and there it was, page after page, the same raven, drawn in charcoal, in ink, in pencil, an obsession, her signature artistic motif.
The world tilted on its axis. No, it was impossible. A coincidence. His sleep-deprived mind was playing tricks on him. He stumbled back into his war room, the portfolio clutched in his trembling hands. His eyes scanned the crime scene photos again, and this time he saw it. A faint, muddy etching on the bark of the tree nearest to where Lily's coat was found. The shape of a bird's wing. The police had missed it. He had missed it.
He found her diary next, hidden in a hat box at the back of her closet. His hands shook so violently he could barely turn the pages. The early entries were filled with love for him, with dreams of a family. Then the tone began to shift. The entries grew darker, more erratic after Lily was born.
October 5th. She has his eyes. When he looks at her, he doesn't see me anymore. I am just a frame for their picture.
March 12th. Her laughter fills every room. There is no space left for my silence. I feel myself disappearing.
April 27th. The raven came to me in a dream. It told me the nest was too small, that the cuckoo chick must be pushed out for the others to survive.
The final entry, dated the day before Lily vanished, was a single sentence.
Tomorrow, I take back the sky.
A guttural roar of pure animal agony tore itself from Alex's throat. The floor fell away, plunging him into an abyss of horror. The fragile woman, lost in her grief, was a mask. Beneath it was a monster. The enemy he had been hunting in the shadows was sleeping in his bed, sharing his air, poisoning his life with her silent, monstrous secret.
He waited for her in the living room as a storm raged outside, the thunder rattling the windows like the fists of an angry god. The sketchbook and diary lay open on the coffee table. When Sarah entered, she saw them, and her face, for the first time in months, showed not sadness, but a flicker of something cold and hard.
You weren't supposed to find those.
Why? Sarah? Why?
You don't understand. She was a noise, a constant screaming noise that drowned everything out. She took you from me. I was a ghost in my own home. I wanted the silence back. I wanted you back.
The confession, so calm and logical in its absolute insanity, shattered the last remnant of the man he was. The love he held for this woman curdled into a venomous, white-hot hatred. He saw the woods, the yellow raincoat, the empty swing. He saw the face of the detective, heard his tired voice. He saw the 6 months of agonizing, pointless searching. It all crashed down on him, an avalanche of despair and rage. He didn't remember picking up the heavy glass award from the mantelpiece, an old prize for his journalism. He only remembered the sickening thud, the splintering of bone, and the final surprised gasp from the woman who was once his world. And then, for the first time in 6 months, there was silence.
Alex sat on the floor amid the wreckage of his life. The body of his wife, a pale shape in the encroaching twilight. The rage had evaporated, leaving behind a hollow, echoing void. He felt nothing. Not triumph, not remorse, just empty. Slowly, mechanically, he pushed himself to his feet and walked to Lily's room. He needed to tell her it was over, that she could rest. He pushed the door open and froze.
The room wasn't pink. There was no canopy bed, no mountain of stuffed animals, no bookshelf filled with fairy tales. The room was a study, his old study from before. A heavy oak desk stood against one wall, covered in a thin layer of dust. The walls were lined with bookshelves, all filled with his books on history and politics. There wasn't a single toy, not a speck of pink, not a trace that a child had ever lived here. No. He stumbled to the mantelpiece in the living room, his eyes scanning the silver-framed photos. There was one of him and Sarah on their wedding day, one of him on a fishing trip, one of Sarah in a garden, but the photo of the 3 of them at the beach, the one he looked at every single night, with Lily on his shoulders, it wasn't there. The space was empty.
Mr. Thorne? Alex? It's Detective Miller. A neighbor reported shouting. Are you all right in there?
The lock clicked and the door swung open. Detective Miller stepped inside, his hand near his holster, his face a mask of concern. He took in the scene, the body on the floor, Alex standing like a statue, the vacant look in his eyes.
Oh, God. Alex.
I did it for Lily. I got justice for my daughter.
Alex, we've been through this. We talked to your doctor. We talked to Sarah's family. You and Sarah, you wanted a child more than anything, but it never happened. Alex, you never had a daughter.
The words didn't register at first. They were just sounds. Then they pierced the veil of his delusion, and his entire reality collapsed into dust. Lily, her laugh, her yellow coat, her hand in his, all of it a phantom, a fiction woven by a mind so broken by loss, the loss of a dream, that it created a greater tragedy to mask the empty one. The little girl in the woods, she was real. A neighborhood child whose unsolved murder had been the spark that ignited his psychosis. His mind had latched onto her story and superimposed the daughter he'd always yearned for, creating a drama where he could be the hero. Sarah's confession, had she been playing along? One final, desperate act in their shared madness? Or had she truly been the monster, and his delusion simply a lens through which he viewed her crime? It didn't matter.
He had murdered his wife for a ghost. His gaze fell upon the old heavy revolver he kept locked in the desk drawer, the one relic from a grandfather he'd never known. In his mind's eye, he saw the little red swing, swaying back and forth, creaking, empty. It wasn't a memorial anymore. It was a monument to his own madness.
I'm sorry.
Detective Miller saw the shift in his eyes and started to move, but he was too late. The sound that followed was the last deafening note in a symphony of silence.